Hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar where we present our newest release of LemonTree, LemonTree 4.0. My name is Philipp Kalender. I'm joined by my colleague Daniel Siegel, and yeah, we will together show you our newest addition to additions in features to LemonTree, and also other members of the LemonTree product family, what these family members are capable of. And we will do this in a practical fashion. We will not show many slides. We have prepared quite intensive demo for today. So let's start right into it. Just as first introduction, a short workflow demonstration. So what we will show in the next, let's say, 25 to 30 minutes. So our demonstration is based on GitHub. So we will perform a change in an enterprise architect model, which is put under version control in a GitHub repository. We will modify this enterprise architect model in enterprise architect. Changes will be published in the GitHub repository. And then we will show you what is also one of the main focus of LemonTree 4.0, which is the reviewing capabilities. So the changes of the Git commits can be reviewed and validated with LemonTree Web. So in a browser-based fashion with GitHub commands, you can see what has changed, and it's much easier to perform the reviews in a browser-based way. And at the end, the review is finished and the changes are merged. And for those of you who already know LemonTree, then there could be the possibility to have conflicts. If there are conflicts, those can be resolved, which is something that LemonTree is famous for detecting conflicts and resolving them. And once this is done, the changes are integrated into the main line and you can continue on working. So this is basically what we have for the slides in the beginning. So as I said, we don't want to have more slides for now. We want to show already some demonstration. So I'm starting in GitHub. And here, before I do anything, what we always like to do is to enforce a change workflow. So a proper change management, that means not changing anything in the model without having some task or issue that triggers the change. So that means before I even start to change something, I will create a new issue. So just as an explanation, the model that we're currently working on here is a small SysML model, which represents a traffic light system. We used this in some other demonstrations before. We will extend this, so we have a small systems engineering model traffic light. And here I want to add an alternative power supply. So some photovoltaic power supply. So I will call this feature add PV power supply. I submit this issue to have a task to rely on. And here, in order to do this, I won't do this in the main branch because other people might be working on this. And maybe if this issue is not worth putting it back into the main line, I can easily get rid of the branch. So what I will do is I create a branch in order to work on this. And this is a so-called feature branch. So everything I do here is done in a separate development branch, which is called a feature branch. And here I will perform my changes. So now the branch is created in GitHub, and now I have my starting point in order to start working and modify my enterprise architect model. Here I have the model open up, and now I will use the LemonTree add-in to get the newest branch and to check out these changes. And here we are at the first change that is related to LemonTree 4.0. Here we introduced a new capability to switch the branches. Previously, it was just a list of all the branches, and now there's a proper dialog to maintain and the branches. For example, I can select between local and remote branches. So here in the remote branches, I search for my previously created feature branch, which is this 493 add PV power supply. And by switching to the branch, I check out this feature branch. So just as a reminder, this is the branch that I now created here in GitHub. This is now checked out by LemonTree. And now we can see here, we are in this branch. This is also shown here in this dialog here, switch branch from. This is the feature branch. So now I'm currently in the feature branch. So here we can see the SysML diagram. This is a block definition diagram showing our traffic light system. And here we have the main power source, and we want to extend this by adding an alternative or additional power supply. I will add a new port, which is of type power source, and this I will call PV. Just to distinguish it here, I would just call this main power. And related to this, since I added a new port, I have to also change this here, because in the internal block diagram, of course, I also have a new port. So I'm just going to connect this to this internal part. And that's it for now. So now I've finished my work. So I can use again the LemonTree add-in to publish this change to the feature branch. First, of course, I have to add a commit message. Of course, you can combine this with or perform this workflow with several other version control clients. So you can do this with Smart Git, you can use Tortoise Git, any Git client there is. Of course, it's much more convenient to use LemonTree add-in and make this calls directly from within Enterprise Architect. So now the changes are pushed to the Git server. Now I'm switching back to the browser, to the GitHub repository. Navigating to the feature branch, and currently this feature branch is just existing there, and there's no check done or no relation to the main branch. What I want to do next is to create a so-called pull request, which basically prepares my branch to be merged back to the main branch. And in this pull request, we can perform checks and run build actions in order to investigate the changes even more, to make more meaningful reviews, which you will see in some minutes then what Daniel will show to you. For this, at first, I need to create a pull request. this pull request is now prepared, and you can see here it says that I want to merge one commit into the main branch from my current feature branch. And you can already see that some checks are triggered, which will be now ran in the background. And in the meantime, while they're running, I will show you something else. Daniel will then continue and explain these actions to you, and will also explain what the advantages of using that, and also what the new changes of LemonTree 4 are contributing to this. What is also improved in the LemonTree add-in is the capability of discarding changes. So let's say I do some change which I probably will regret, meaning I will delete the power source block here, which of course will also break the ports here because they refer to the interface block. So now currently I have not committed anything yet, so I will just want to see the changes. So I'm using again the LemonTree add-in to calculate the difference, so to see what I have changed. And then of course I will see that my change here has caused some impact in the model because I removed this interface block. So now LemonTree started up. And of course, if you just take a look at this, you will already see a difference to the previous LemonTree version. If you are familiar with previous and older versions, you can see that LemonTree has modernized a user interface. So we reworked this. We use a new user interface framework. The focus of this was to have a better usability, a better feedback, a better performance. So the main concept and the main arrangement of the UI controls is not changed. So you don't have to learn everything from scratch while using LemonTree, but some minor changes have been done to the model. So for example, if I want to reduce the diff of a certain package or a model view, let's say you have multiple packages and you just want to focus this system architecture because you only have changes there. We introduced a feature called custom routes. So you can select any package and set this as a custom route. And this will now reload the session basically. And now the focus is only set to this one package and everything else is currently hidden. This is especially useful if you have multiple changes, but you just want to focus on a very specific part of the model. So this helps you to set the focus to the important changes. Yeah, and here we can see that I removed this interface block, which also has an impact to the type of these ports here because they use this element as a type reference. So I basically shouldn't do that because then I would break also these two ports. So thanks to the diff, I know that I don't want to publish this change. So I can use the LemonTree add-in here to discard the changes, which will revert the changes that I did only in this file. So other files in the Git repository are not affected by this, but only the changes of the enterprise architect model are reverted, so set back to the last commit. And since I committed the change before I removed this interface block, I can easily revert back and be on the safe side in order to restore my last commit, basically. So now I'm taking or handling the task over to Daniel, who will be the reviewer, and he will review the changes in GitHub and explain to you how this is now possible with LemonTree.
Hi. So it's my pleasure today to review the work that Philip has done. And Philip has to stop presenting so I can share my screen. And we will share my screen. And as we said, Philip before created a GitHub pull request. A pull request is something very normal in software engineering. And with our technology, we enable also the use of pull requests for model-based engineering, either systems engineering or software engineering. And Uh, some of the things that we did is we ran three actions, three GitHub actions, but this could also be Jenkins tasks or um, or TeamCity or whatever build environment you use. In our case, it's GitHub actions. The first check I want to show you is the LemonTree model readiness. This is an open source check. It's a very simple model validation check that basically examines the model. If, for example, there is no baselines, if there is not too much binary content in there, if the model is not bloated, and it also gives me some statistics on the model. Very simple and open source check that you can employ to get a better grip, better control on the changes happening to your models in your organization. The more advanced check I used is this publish review session, which is using our LemonTree automation. What it does, it basically runs in the pipeline, looks at the model from the main branch, the common base, and the latest check-in from the feature branch, and it tries to run a diff, and it would inform us also if there is conflicts in the model. In this case, you can see there is no merge conflicts in the model, so we can easily merge our model back into the main branch. Also, as a special feature, we can, using the scripts, now embed SVG diagrams into pull request comments and other sources. Also, this is a new capability of LemonTree automation, that it can render SVG diagrams from your models to be used in your pipelines. We can already see the change from Philip, that he has this PV port. And interestingly, we now also have a diff report, a capability that we have been asked a lot of times in the past. So what LemonTree automation can do, it can render an XML file that you can use to get details about the changes. In our case here, I have a changed element, which is the main power block, and I have the PV port that is newly created. So it's a very fast and efficient way to see the changes in the model. Obviously, if there's lots of change, you need maybe a bit more advanced handling, but this gives you a very good and fast understanding of the changes that happen in a model directly in a pull request comment. More advanced, we have also the capability to see the full LemonTree review session. The review session is LemonTree automation renders a session, a diff session, and stores it on a file storage that is specific to this commit. So at any time, I can either open it in LemonTree desktop by clicking on the link, and LemonTree desktop will open up and show me exactly the changes from this commit without me having to check out the Git repo on my client. And we can fastly see the changes that have been done, rename on the main power, a rename on the main power, and the PV port was newly introduced. So very, very quick way to get a good understanding of your model changes and to have fast review possibilities. And even more cool is we can now run LemonTree Web in Docker containers, and I can also directly open the diff session in a web browser. So also people that previously had no access to LemonTree can now leverage its power to understand change that happened to the model with exactly the same capabilities, but in a web browser. And I think this is very exciting news and very helpful for many scenarios that are out there at our customers. Again, just the same capabilities. Even the custom root is here. So all the capabilities are here that you are used to see from LemonTree diffs. And I'm fine. Oh, no, there is a conflict. So apparently there was an update on the main branch and a conflict occurred. And again, we can use LemonTree Web to already preview the model conflict that happened in order to make a quick judgment if this will be a big problem or not. And I'm calling LemonTree Web now on this session with the conflict, and we can scroll in and go to the detail of the conflict, which is this traffic light block. And you can see, okay, they renamed the port to power, and I renamed the port to main power, so it shouldn't be too dramatic to resolve this task. To hand it over to Philip, I write a comment on my request. Looks fine. Please resolve the model level conflict. So, and today I had a really quick task because of LemonTree 4. It was very fast and efficient for me to review the model changes that happened. Back to Philip. He has some merging to do.
Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, of course, the conflict was no coincidence. I was, of course, working in the meantime on some other task, let's say, in the main branch. And this is exactly the reason why we use this kind of workflow to detect such changes that happened in the meantime. So the idea is to not lose track of all the changes, and even before a change is brought back into the main line, we know when something has happened, we know before a conflict is actually happening, and we can resolve the conflict before integrating changes back. So I'm again starting to share my screen. So I'm still in the feature branch, and resolving the conflict can be done with multiple ways. Merging this from Enterprise Architect from LemonTree is also possible, but I will do this in a proper Git client because the handling of the branches and the merging is much easier and much more supported in this environment. So here, yes, thank you, Dan. It just reminded me to close the model in Enterprise Architect, because when switch just recognizing that my PC is having a hard time, so I'm just disabling the video in order to make things smooth again. So hopefully I'm audible again. So coming back to the example. So I'm checking out my feature branch. And as we can see in the branch structure, once the switch is finished, that we have a conflict to resolve. Take some time today, but we will get there. So there we go. Now we can see it. We have a common starting point, and there is the renaming of the port, which is the intermediate commit that happened while Daniel was reviewing. And here we have the feature branch, and we can see it. The two branches are diverging. So it cannot be just merged automatically. It has to be done by LemonTree. And now we have to detect if there is something that needs to be resolved, if there is a conflict or not. And to do this, I can finish the feature by using git flow. And here I will integrate the changes from the main branch before I merge this back. And now, while integrating this, LemonTree will try to merge the changes at first automatically. So by default, LemonTree always tries to perform a merge automatically. And now you can see here, apparently this is not possible because here we have a conflict. So that means we cannot merge this automatically because it's an enterprise architect file. And of course, LemonTree has to be used for that. So in SmartGit, in the Git client here, LemonTree is configured as the external diff and merge tool, which means that in a case of encountering an enterprise architect file, LemonTree will be used in order to deal with enterprise architect files. And by double clicking on this entry here, LemonTree will be triggered. The model files which are necessary for performing the merge will be handed over to LemonTree, and then the merge is performed. And if you're already familiar with LemonTree in that case, we have now two possible outcomes. The first is there is no real model conflict, so the merge can be performed automatically. If there is a real model conflict, for example, a modification to an element and a removal of an element, then you have to resolve the conflict in the model and decide which change to take. And now we can see here we have a conflict. So I can enable the filter in order to see what is the conflict on the model level. And there we can see the change that happened in the meantime is related to this port. We can also have a look on the diagram. So this is the internal diagram here. We can also take a look here on the BDD diagram. Here we can directly see the conflict. The name was changed in both branches. So this is, I would say, an easy conflict because it's just the name, but this cannot be merged automatically. So I have to decide what to take. Standard suggestion is the change from A. I can also say to take, let's say, the change from the B branch here, or if both changes are not meaningful, then I could say I provide my own name and override the merge value during the merge process. So now it's a user supply change, power supply, and now I can merge the changes because I resolved the conflict. And here again, if you used LemonTree for merging before, this is also something new, a result page of the merge, and that you can then exit LemonTree, because in the past the reporting here was a bit not too obvious, let's say, and now we can see when LemonTree has finished the merge, and we can close LemonTree after the merging. And now we resolve this because we solved the merge externally. And now I can continue the merge process within Git. And after that, I have a clean history here. I can push the change. And now I could again hand it over back to the reviewer, because based on the content, the review was fine. There was a merge conflict. So now I resolved the conflict, and now these changes could be again reviewed, and then once it's fine, it can be merged, because now there is no conflict in Git. It's just a change that I integrated. And if we now go back to GitHub and take a look at the history, so here we can see there is a merge conflict, and it could not be merged. Based on the content, it looked fine to the reviewer, but now we can see that this branch has no conflicts with the base branch. So after my merge action, I resolved these conflicts, and now I would be able to merge this back. So I could do this, of course, in the Git client, but if you do this in the review process here in GitHub, I could, of course, just squash the changes and merge it back into the main line, resolving the entire pull request. And now this pull request is merged, and the change has successfully been integrated into the main branch. And now just to recap what we did. So the initiator for this was a task, a change request, an issue report. So no changes done without any of these triggers. This led to the creation of a branch in GitHub. And based on this branch, the model was changed with Enterprise Architect, and changes were pushed to the Git server. And to review the changes, you actually don't need access to the local Git repository. You don't need to check out. You don't need to have LemonTree even installed locally, because with LemonTree Web, it's now much more accessible to reviewers to review the changes of the model in the browser, and the reviewing process is much more seamlessly and more integrated into web-based Git environments, for example. And at the end, after all this reviewing, we finished the changes and merged them back, and basically did one entire workflow from starting a task, reviewing it, and then validating this change and merging it back. So with this, we wanted to show some familiar features with LemonTree which have not really been changed, maybe improved a little bit to support the workflow of reviewing and diffing the model a bit more. You've seen also some new changes related to the automation and also the web-based review, which open many possibilities to include LemonTree into your workflow and to combine LemonTree with traditional approaches, maybe from software engineering, and also to enable LemonTree in different kind of build pipelines to make the model a more meaningful part in the entire development process. And with that, before we end this and leave room for some questions that we can answer, there is one comment or an announcement for a next upcoming webinar. This is where Daniel wants to explain a few things.
On Wednesday, I will do a webinar together with Nisam from Collaborate and Istvan from Inquiry, where we will show a fully integrated demo using Collaborate, LemonTree, GitHub, and a most important and a really new feature, an integration with the Inquiry validation suite. So finally, enterprise scale validation in the enterprise architect ecosystem. So check it out. It's on Wednesday at 3 o'clock. Tonight I have another webinar for French in COSE chapter. And yeah, so we are very busy at the moment.
Okay, thanks, Daniel. Yeah, with that, I want to thank everyone who was attending. And now we have some more minutes left for questions. I've seen that Daniel was very busy and already answered a lot of questions. We will, of course, gather all the questions along with the answers, and this will be sent out along with additional information from the webinar. So there is one question. Okay, Daniel already answered it. So
I think one of the interesting questions is what kind of products licensing do you need to do all of this? You need a license for LemonTree automation, which is a headless version of LemonTree to be run in CI/CD environments. And for LemonTree Web, we are currently very friendly. And if you are a customer, you can use it on a demo way at the moment, and later or early next year, LemonTree Web will be licensed with the normal LemonTree floating licenses. So there will be no specific license required. The capability is the same. So that's the plan for LemonTree Web. The other questions, I think this is the most important of the questions we had so far. And also Felix asked us how we can link model elements into the review. This is something we have been discussing a lot. If you have good ideas how we could do this in a backend agnostic way, so it does work for other tools and not just for GitHub as well. We are very open to discuss this. We have some ideas, but none that really made us run. It's something we want to do, absolutely. But we are very open also if there is a user group that wants to discuss how we can move forward in this topic. We are very open to have these discussions in private meetings or maybe join some customers together. It's absolutely something that we care for. If there is no more questions, I think we would like to thank you for your for your time, and are looking forward to see you the next time when we do a webinar. If you have ideas for things where we should do focused webinars on a more specific topic and so on, we are very open to suggestions. Thank you very much.
yeah, thank you very much for the attention. And yeah, as already said, questions and answers will be sent out, as well as the recording will be online, and the slides, of course, so you don't miss anything. Thank you, and see you next time.